Hello everyone! In today's adventures of importing Package Resolved, a game that I made years ago, to this tiny little cheese slice, we're going to be delving in and hopefully trying to get some sort of timer or countdown on the screen. Fun stuff. Let's see how everyone's doing today. A little bit of a cold start, that's fine. That's fine. That is fine. Now, I should probably point out some important updates here. First thing being, I'm now using a tiling window system, so I may be fumbling around with windows a little bit and needing to point out which ones need to be marked as floating. Thankfully for the stream, I already fixed that, so the simulator now floats correctly as anticipated here. Everything else should be tiling, though. So we should be a-okay there. So I guess without further ado, let's kind of delve into our tree here. So looking at our tree, we start from the top. In our drawing the rest of the owl section in the core gameplay loop, we now have a couple of things that we've completed. So pretty much everything related to collecting boxes is now done. Though I did spend some extra time last night trying to clean some things up before we got started with today. And just kind of briefly demo what that is. Running the game here on the simulator, we actually now have proper boxes on the screen. They're not just letter A's anymore, which is really helpful because, oh, you know what, give me a second. There we go, forgot to put Do Not Disturb mode on. This is really good because we're not using placeholder art anymore. For all intents and purposes, this is going to be the final product. The way that I have the boxes kind of jumping up and down here is a little weird. It's not necessarily using the same sprite logic as the player does, but it does have to relate with like frames and your position on the screen and things like that. I may try to refine that later. We'll see what happens. I'm going to move this over to this side real quick, since I'm not ready to jump into the code yet to switch over to that. But one thing that I actually discovered, for anyone that actually has a physical device that's plugged in, granted that you have it unlocked, and I'm showing this for the Mac specifically. On Windows, I think it's a different menu. You can actually click this little button down here and use the actual device to control the simulator, instead of having to manually copy the game over to your device to test the input controls, which is really nice. That'll definitely speed up a lot of development as I'm messing around here with the crank and I'm not having to constantly move my mouse around. But another cool thing about this is that we can actually also copy the game to the device this way too. I don't have to sit in going and doing all this manual stuff. It just works out of the box, which is really nice. So little things that we learn. That being said, if you're interested in weekly shenanigans besides mine, highly recommend checking out the Playdate Squad Discord server. Let me see if I could get a quick link for everyone here. Invite, copy, paste that in a couple times. Really? Good gravy, OBS. There we go. There we go. Okay, anyway, so let's switch back to my workspace for this. Oh, what's up, Leviathan? What's going on? Okay. So, now that we got the major visual changes figured out, I just want to show a couple of other things, and to do that I need to go into small me mode. So one of the big ones here is that I have been working on trying to refactor some of this code a little bit, and we're moving them out into separate methods just to make it easier for me to track what's going on here. Right now it's just literally kind of copy pasting and it's just adding in the appropriate references, but this should hopefully make things a little bit easier to read in terms of the core gameplay loop here. Still need to do something to address the various variables that we have up here, but I'm sure we'll figure that out at some point. Another thing as well is I have actually discovered, and I found this out from Will from Panic, the company that creates not only the Playdate, but the editor that I use. Their extension for C, Icarus, actually supports completions for other files if you have a compile commands.json file. So if I were to, oh, I need to increase the terminal here. So if I were to show that real quick, just going to do this in NeoVim. As long as you have this generated, it will actually support auto completions. So if I were to go here, right, let's say we just want to log something to the console. You can see that now I am getting the proper completions here, and I didn't have to do anything else, which is really nice. Prior to this, what I had done was I just made a link to the C API folder and just kind of added it to some ignore list. Turns out I don't need to do that. All I need to do is just create a compile commands. That being said, we have also introduced just into our system here. Now, this isn't required or anything. This is just to make life a little bit easier for me. Right, because often I like to run the unit tests as well as doing the formatting, but sometimes I may be using like NeoVim or something, and I don't have the Nova tasks at my disposal. So I just use just to run those. So that way, if I want to say run the tests, I just say just test, compiles and runs. I don't need to do anything extra. Same thing for updating the completions, because sometimes we'll generate new files and the old compile commands won't recognize them. So I need to occasionally rerun the completions to get them back. So I can just run just completions, done. Again, this isn't a required tool or anything. You can still do make and everything else the regular way. This is just to speed up some things, just to make them a little bit easier to work with. I think that covers most of the changes that I kind of did behind the scenes prior to today's stream, just so that way we're off on a good start when we actually get into the timers. Coffee. Okay, so I guess with that in mind, let us jump back to our discovery tree, right? So we're done with all the box collecting. So now we're moving on to the timer. We're not touching obstacles or the rolling background yet, because that requires more artwork to actually get things to show on the screen for the background. But where did okay, Figma's being weird. So, moving back to our discovery tree, I'm going to move this out so that way we can actually add some subtasks to this. Whoop, I didn't mean to grab the entire window. Yeah, I gotta be a bit more careful because sometimes if I'm not careful, I will accidentally trigger my window management instead of what I actually want to trigger, which is, okay, if I do Shift Option, it works. Okay, good to know. Okay, so now we can link these up. Talk about... Come on, YouTube, do we really need to do that? One of the things that I don't like is that the emoji thing blocks some of this. Let me see if I can just... Yeah, there we go. That works better. Okay, I just need to make the chat window a little bigger. Talk about code. Oh, trust me. Trust me. Sometimes we get dial-up tones here. Case in point, the C arrays. That was a nightmare. So what are we doing with timers? So we need to keep track of a timer. Right? We need to find some way to keep track of time so that way we know how many seconds we have left. We also need to display to the screen how much time we have left. And then I guess just do something when the timer ends. Right? That's pretty much the basis of what we need to do. So for now, we need to mark these as to do. Let me make sure I'm using the right colors here. Yes. There we go. Maybe I should get a little trackpad to make that a little bit easier. Things to think about. Anyway. So let's find a way to keep track of the time. So that way we can actually start working on getting a timer set up. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to first jump into the documentation and see what is available to us. Because I do believe we have some things related to time that we can work with here. Time and date. Returns the number of milliseconds since some arbitrary point in time. This should present a consistent time base while the game is running. Interesting. Reset elapsed time. Get elapsed time. Returns the number of seconds since reset was called. Okay, so maybe we don't even need to have our own logic then? Well, hold on. We still need to know... okay. So we're probably going to have to combine... probably have to combine both things here. So we need to also display to the screen. That will be important. And unfortunately, since this is tying in much into the Playdate's APIs, I don't think we can pull these out into testable methods either. So we're kind of going in blind with this. Make a visual novel for the Playdate. There are visual novel frameworks for the Playdate available. I am aware of those. So if I were to come over here to DevTools and Frameworks, in the server here, if I search visual, will it appear? No. Someone may... Oh, you know what? It's probably maybe somewhere here. No. It's probably somewhere on GitHub and not posted in here. Well, I know that there's a framework out there. There's a framework out here. I just don't remember what it was. And I remember seeing it in here somewhere. Something to keep in mind anyway. So, let's come back here. So I guess for now, we'll just do an int time remaining. 60 seconds, we'll say. So then I think what we can do... So in our game loop, what I'm going to do is we're going to call that... what was it called? It's under System. System reset elapsed time. And then I think what we can do is under our actions, let's get the elapsed time here. So float time since reset is the... So we need to go into the Playdate and get our elapsed time. Now, I think what we can do is if time since reset is... Well, ideally, I think what we just need to do is just convert this into an integer, right? Yeah. Okay. So what we need to do then is... Whoop. There we go. Why is there a star here? Okay. So then I think we just need to do time remaining. Is time remaining minus time since reset, I want to say. And I think just for the purpose of this, we're just going to create a small message, I think. Yeah. So we're going to say char star timer message is that. Actually, here's what we'll do. We'll do that, and then we're going to call our format string. So we can put the number in the text. Like so. So first we want to edit the existing timer message. Then we're going to say we're going to put a number in it, and then we're going to put in time remaining. And then I'm going to call draw ASCII text. Oh, you know what? Here's what we're going to do as well. Timer position. I will just put this at 8 for now, so 8 pixels from the top of the screen horizontally. 8 from... Yeah, so it's going to be offset by 8 to the left and 8 from the top. So it's just a little bit of padding. That's the idea. Timer position. Now, hopefully, let's see what poops out the other end. 60. Oh, that is way too fast. It works. It works. But, we're working in milliseconds, not seconds. So it's going a little too fast. Let me check the chat here real quick. I wonder if it's possible to port spin rhythm. I think somebody may be trying to work on a rhythm game for the Playdate. I'm not sure if there are any currently on the store, but we could take a look. So this is the catalog. So this is kind of like the sort of app store for the Playdate. Alas, you can always go to other game stores like itch.io and just sideload the games on, so you don't have to buy from the catalog, but... Yeah, okay, so this one... Oh, this one's supposed to be coming soon. Sometime early this year. Called which is a rhythmic dungeon crawler. That's interesting. Very interesting. So I know that rhythm games do exist for the Playdate, or at least people are developing them. I'm not too familiar with spin rhythm itself, but there's a lot that kind of goes into porting, as we're kind of seeing here with my game, because this game was originally written for the Godot engine, and we're basically re-implementing everything in C. Granted, it's very small, so it's not that big of a deal, but I imagine that, like, if you were to take a more complex project, you would probably want to figure out a way to port the engine over and, like, translate the calls correctly and whatnot, because there's a lot of gotchas with the Playdate. One thing is like memory constraints. They're a lot smaller than what you would expect from, say, a bigger console or a PC. So you have a little limited memory to work with. Also, the display is 1 bit, so you only get black or white, on or off. So you have to be a little bit more creative with your artwork there. Those are just some of those constraints, but yeah, there's a little bit more that's involved. Just curious, why did you choose C over Lua? So, for anyone that knows me, I am a contract iOS developer, so I work on iOS apps and whatnot, and I'm very familiar with the Swift programming language, and it has its roots in like C, Objective-C, but also brings in like modern language features. So being the Swiftie that I am, it was very natural for me to jump over to C for writing the game instead of Lua, since I'm kind of more familiar with the way that C-based languages work, or things that are in the C family. I don't like C++ that much. I find that there's just a lot of language features in there, and if you're not very careful, you get really kludgy code bases that are just horrible to work with. I've had my fair share of that when learning OpenGL. So in comparison, C is very nice to work with. Granted, I know you're basically working with a manual revolver where you have to hold the barrel and manually do everything and just pray that it doesn't backfire on you. But I do enjoy working with C a lot. It feels very familiar to me as somebody that's done a lot of code using Swift and Objective-C. So it's kind of like a comfort thing, but also kind of like I am okay with kind of doing things a little bit under the hood and caring more about performance and things like that. That being said, I'm not completely opposed to using Lua. I may try learning that a bit more and creating something with Lua. It's just that for this first project here, I really kind of wanted to hone in and try doing the whole thing with C, which so far, besides the small bump in the road of trying to do arrays correctly for unit tests, it's been going pretty good. So I hope that answers the question as to why I am writing this whole thing in C versus using Lua. With that in mind, let's see if we can get back to fixing our timer problem here. So I'm going to switch back to mini-me mode. So I think the major problem here is that we are looking at returns the number of... See, this is supposed to say number of seconds, but that's clearly not the case. Maybe... Let's try a thing here. Maybe it is running in microseconds and there's just a typo. No. No, clearly not. Did you ignore... Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see that. Look, I don't think there's enough memory to get this thing to be freaking Elohim. I don't think I could be running crude storytelling AIs off of a tiny little cheese slice. That would be interesting to see, but I don't think I'd be the one to be able to pull that off. Not with that attitude. Look, I'm being realistic here. I'm being realistic. So I wonder... Okay, what if we do something a little silly here and say, if time since reset is greater than or equal to 0, then we reset the elapsed time. Maybe that'll make it a bit more consistent. Oh no, you didn't like that. You did not like that. Okay, here's what we'll do. Okay, we just recreated the same problem. Let me look here. We're not using that one. Returns the number of seconds since Playdate reset elapsed time was called. The value is a floating point number with microsecond accuracy. So supposedly this is supposed to return seconds, but we're not quite getting that. I'm trying to think why that might be. Okay, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna be cheeky. Time. And we're just gonna straight up let's see what the actual value is when we do that. Oop, cancel. I think. Okay. Two, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, okay, so our actual logic is wrong. The elapsed time is working as intended. Oh yeah, I could kind of see why that's happening. Is since reset. Now, if time no, okay. So every time this increments up by 1, we want to decrement our time remaining. So I mean, what if we just use the constant timer value instead? Also, where did my window go? Oh, okay, that works. That works. That works. Okay. That is fine by me. So now we have a proper timer on the screen that is displaying. Yeah, it's a working timer. We did it. We did it, chat. We did it. See, sometimes streams just kind of happen like this, where it's like we managed to get almost everything done in one fell swoop. Other times I'm fumbling around, just messing things up. But this is good. This is good. So let me see if there's another thing that we can do here. I want to check and see, do we have any other system thingies that we can work with here? Logging, time and date, miscellaneous, format string, set menu image, draw FPS, get battery percentage, voltage, clear iCache. No, we don't need to do that. Is there anything with the display that we can do? Some file management. Graphics. No, I don't think there's like a dialog box or anything on the C side of things, it looks like. Okay, I have an idea. So if time remaining is less than or equal to 0, return 0, as in we're no longer drawing anything. So let's see how many we can collect in here. So we're going to use the device as a controller. I'm going to move myself. Time for Big Me. Big Me. And we're just going to restart. See how far we can get. See, I wish we could just write unit tests for this just to make it easier, but unfortunately we cannot, since this deals heavily with the Playdate itself and not some common thing. Do. At some point we need to get proper music for this. I knew I did some little tune a while back for it, though I might want to redo the music for this, because I didn't really like it. Maybe something a little bit more lo-fi. Okay. Okay. We've halted. We have halted. And we managed to collect 51 boxes in a minute. Okay, so that's good. That is very good. So cool. Let's go back to the tree. The tree of trees. Yeah. Oh, I didn't mean to make the... I didn't realize you could make the arrows green. The more you know. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to run the formatter. This is just to make the files all pretty when we do things. Excellent. Yeah. So really, that didn't take a lot of code, since we're just using what the Playdate already offers, which is pretty good. So, add a timer to the screen. After a minute, the game will stop. Looks like it freezes, but it is intentional, at least for now. We're going to go here. And it's okay, I know I'm not in the right mode right now, but that's mostly because you don't really need to watch me. You don't need to see the full thing in detail when I do this sort of thing. Okay. So while that's up there, let's kind of view what we got going on here. Whew. Okay. So we got the boxes and we got the timer. The next two things we'll have to deal with are the background and the obstacles. So that'll be interesting to see how that works out. I think what I'm going to do is for these, I will move them over like this. This is just to make it easier for me to work with. Oops, I selected too much. Nice, nice. Okay, so boxes done, timer done. So now we just got obstacles in the rolling background, and then that's pretty much the core gameplay loop, which pretty good considering that we only have been at this for half an hour. Very good stuff. So I'm going to put that there for now. So let's go take a look and see what's going on in chat here. Plan is to get comfortable with C while creating a mini game for the summer. Yeah, I mean, it does take a little bit of time to kind of understand how these things work, but yeah, I wouldn't say C is too bad. I would say with working with the Playdate APIs, it's actually not that bad. I think it's when you start to kind of veer off and like do things for like, say, at an operating system level, like say writing a command line shell, so like a terminal, like that. That's where things start to get a little bit hairy, since there are often things that you'll have to like dynamically allocate, and then you need to like worry about like linked lists and then doing all this other stuff. As you can see, like the Playdate SDK for C provides a lot out of the box for us, so that definitely simplifies a lot of things. Granted, there's still some extra work that we have to do behind the scenes, but I would say compared to like say writing a regular C program for like a desktop or something, it isn't as nuts or isn't as complicated. So I think with respect to C and the Playdate, it shouldn't be too bad to transition. Let's see what else here. Make the game 4D. We can barely handle 3D. What makes you think we could go a dimension higher? Though, in all seriousness, there are people that have been doing some absolutely amazing things for 3D 3D games on the Playdate. One of those is Diora, which is kind of like Monument Valley, but there's a lot else that kind of goes on with it. And the work that this guy's just doing for this, absolutely incredible. Like, it amazes me that like we're even able to get this sort of thing going. Likewise, trying to think what other 3D based things that we have here. You could kind of see Rocket Man here. And then we also have like P Racing, which kind of does like a Mode 7 type of 3D thing, which is really cool. So like if you want to do 3D syncing, there you go. I'm trying to think what other big ones. I don't remember. It's probably somewhere in the show and tell, but somebody managed to get some sort of like wireframe based thing. Let me see if we can. Yes, yes, yes. I mean, just look at this. Here we go. This is insane, and the fact that we're looking at like really smooth. Please. It is being finicky, but right, and like let's consider that we only got like 16 megabytes of memory to work with, right? It's not like your gaming PC, which probably has like 8, 16, 32, 128 gigs of RAM. We're only working with 16 megabytes. And that's freaking incredible. Right? Like, it makes me kind of think of like when we had other software companies that were making games like Doom and whatnot, like imagining how far we managed to get with that. So, like, suffice to say, like, we can do the 3D. It takes a lot of extra work and effort, but you can do it. I really don't know if we could go a dimension higher, though. That's my opinion. Totally do 4D with... Yeah, I want to see you try Leviathan. I'm challenging you. Make a 4D game. Make a 4D game for Playdate. I want to see it happen. It's like 4 megabytes per dimension. You say that now. You say that now. And then you gotta start doing other things. Yeah. Where were we? Oh yeah, we were talking about the 4D thing, and that's why we managed to bring this up. Anyways, I'm going to put a link to the Playdate Squad server again, just so... Did that go? Yeah, it did. Okay. YouTube is just being slow. So, if you want to join in and see what people are coming up with on this amazing little slice of cheese, then definitely join the server, see what's going on, you know. Every Friday night, we actually do have a community playdate where we all kind of gather together and just kind of chill out. We'll occasionally watch game development videos, we'll also just kind of share what we're working on. Sometimes if we're stuck on something, can kind of ask for help there. Right? It's just kind of like a laid-back office hours-ish type of deal for Playdate specifically. And then likewise, the community in the Playdate Squad server is just absolutely incredible. I highly recommend you check it out. Anyways, that's enough about me plugging some community server that I'm just a member of. Now, the thing with the obstacles is I'm probably going to need to write some art for that, and then we'll also need to do some other collision-related things. So I think what we'll do for now is we'll just try to kind of clean up what we have here. Maybe move the timer in a different spot. And then hopefully we'll get something a bit more solid, right? Because if we look right now, as we had kind of seen, I put the timer on the top left, which is okay, but I think it makes more sense if we put it down here at the bottom instead of the top, since we already have the text down here. So let's go on ahead and get that fixed. So back to Mini-Me. Mini-Me. Okay, so that means all we got to do here is we just got to update this position. So X now becomes... So we want to get the rightmost edge of the screen. So that's going to be the Y. And then I'm going to subtract 14 and then 8 from that. Oh, you know what? This is supposed to be X. And then likewise, we're going to need to do the same thing for the vertical axis as well. No way, Mini-Me. Yes, Mini-Me. Now, if you're wondering why we have this arbitrary 14 number, that is the actual font size. I think it would actually make more sense if we just make this a constant macro here, just to make that a bit clearer. Like this. And then likewise, I'm just going to change this one up here as well. And then 8 is just a nice offset just to give it some padding. So now I think this should put us... Yeah, okay. It's a little too close. So I'm probably going to change the X to be 16 and how about 12? Does 12 look better? Yeah, I think 12 looks better. Okay, so now we got the timer on the screen, or on the bottom right of the screen instead of the top left. Yeah, cool. Cool stuff. Now, at some point, I do want to replace the fonts with my own, but yeah. Yes! We have a very fast little birdie. Look at her go. Yeah, so the premise is, so at least the way that this is set up right now is collect as many boxes as you can within a minute. But this will change a little bit to where it's going to be you need to collect a certain amount of boxes in a certain amount of time. Let me see if I can pull up the original material for this. Go to this source code. Increase the font size here a little bit. Right, I think it's under the game data. Levels JSON. Yeah, you can see like the first example here is like 15 packages in 30 minutes or 30 seconds. 30 packages in 45, and then it just kind of keeps going up that way. Add lore. There actually is lore. There's a little bit of lore. In that there is a story as to why you're a bird, why you're collecting boxes. Like, there is a little bit of a story to that. Right now, the game doesn't do a very good job at showing that. And at one point, I did have a... Let me see if I can pull it up. Authorized to search. Yes. Should be here somewhere. Okay, 1 second while I figure out where this is. Because at one point I was reworking the game. Where is it? Got a bunch of screen recordings here. The sorting on this is really weird right now, but no, that's not it. No, that's the Swift-related stuff. Here we are. Here we are. Okay. That took a moment to find, but let me bring it back. Now, oh, you know what? Let me see if we can get a new desktop here. Right, okay. So, like, you can see here that, like... Oh, where did it go? Okay, here we go. So, like, you can see here that, like, you do kind of get a little bit of lore here in the sense of, like, you learn about, like, what your job is and whatnot. So it is kind of, like, implied through here. Like, it's very subtle, but, like, there is a little bit of a story as to why, you're doing the things that you're doing. It'll probably be fleshed out a little bit more over time as we work on redoing this. Yeah, you can see this was when I was redoing some of the stuff in the Godot version, but Yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about in terms of like actual lore and story here. Let's see what else here is going on in the chat. Back to big me mode while I do this in the meantime. Right. Man, y'all really want to push the limits of this little cheese slice. Oh dear. Crazy. Parallel universe. Oh, brother. Oh, brother. To bottom right of display. Yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens, but for now, I'm just sticking to what we have in the tree here. So the next thing we're probably going to be looking at here is obstacles, and likely the rolling background, though. I will need to prepare the artwork for these ahead of time, since just kind of watching me redo the artwork's a little bit boring. And then I also want to get to the quality of life improvements here, right? So one of those improvements being that in some Playdate games, when you have the crank docked like this, it will come up with a little dialogue that says like, hey, use the crank. So then you pop it out and then that goes away, just to kind of like let people know like, hey, you use the crank to do what you need to do. And then the second one is an accessibility related thing, but using the D-pad buttons here to move left and right instead of just the crank alone. And that's because not everybody will be able to use the crank for one reason or another. So having the D-pad available as an option would definitely be a lot. It would be very beneficial. And then likewise, I do realize that we also need to take care of some other parts in here as well. So I did it again. Okay, state management, I'll call this. There we go. State management, so here, title screen and loading screens, respectively. Create levels from a config file. Ideally, I'd like to use Cuddle, since it's very easy to work and nice to work with, but we can also do just on Playdate has some things built in for that. As well as like game over screens. I don't know if we'll add an infinite mode like the original version, but it's something we could look at too. But for now, those are probably like the big three things I want to manage at that point. What is this chat? You're telling me, Fire Hazard, because they really want to push the limits of the cheese slice. Just came. Well, welcome. So today we were focusing on adding an actual timer into the game, as you can see here. In the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, once I move this, you can actually see that we have a countdown timer, which is important because one of the main things of this game is that you need to collect a certain amount of boxes in a certain amount of time. Right now, it's just hard-coded to a minute, but later down the line, once we like start adding support for like multiple levels, it'll vary. And so that was our main focus, but it turned out that doing this was really, really easy because there wasn't much that we had to do in terms of accessing the Playdate API for this. So that was the main focus, and I was briefly discussing for a moment what we're probably going to do for the next stream, which is focusing on adding the support for obstacles and then setting up the background so that way we have like an actual background, so it's not like you're just running around in space, as kind of indicated here in our discovery tree. But then we also took a slight detour and started talking about other things that we're going to need to do as well, such as like the actual loading screens, title screens, reading from a configuration, and then some other quality of life things, such as like showing the crank indicator when the crank is docked, or adding D-pad alternatives if for some reason you can't use the crank for one reason or another. Just kind of an accessibility win. So that's kind of mostly what we've been doing. But meanwhile, we got chat over here that's wanted to really push the limits of what the Playdate can do. Keep in mind, this is supposed to be like, what, baby's first Playdate game? This is supposed to be like learning the basics of the API and creating a very simple game. Right, and that's the reason why we're porting an existing game that I had already made and figured out. It's because this is such a very simple game to make, realistically speaking, that it doesn't take much effort to do whatever it is that we need to do. My head is kind of blocking a little bit of this, but yeah, you can see here that, like, this is the same thing. We're just now taking this existing project that we made in Godot, and we're rewriting the entire thing in C for the Playdate. No parallel universes, no 4D, just you, boxes, and a timer. And occasionally running into pallets or slipping on wet floor things. So, man, if a potato can run Minecraft, then a cheese slice can run 4 dimensions and ray trace. Yeah, I want to see you try. I want to see you try. We're not doing it for this game, but I want to see you try. 4D is cool, but can it run Crisis? I'm sure somebody could get Doom ported to the Playdate. I'm sure somebody can do that. Crisis, far-reaching, maybe. I don't know. I think that would be interesting to see how you would integrate the crank in Crisis, from just a gameplay standpoint. Anyways, I think that is where we're probably going to wrap it up for today, since we managed to finish what we needed to much earlier, and we kind of derailed a little bit in terms of what we're going to be doing next. So next week we should probably start working on the actual obstacles and the rolling background, and for that what I'll probably do is I will create the artwork ahead of time like I have before, so that way when we dig into the actual code and whatnot, we're not wasting time doing the artwork, and watching me paint pixel by pixel is kind of a little painful, so. So in any case, I hope you enjoyed today's stream. If you are watching this pre-recorded, feel free to come join us every Saturday at noon Eastern Standard, or around 5 o'clock p.m. UTC. And yeah, great chatting with you all here, and I will see you in the next one.